This is Dog Talk with Michael J. Solar on BLK9 TV. Michael, dog trainer, author, and the owner of Blue Line Canine Dog Training, will bring you the answers you need, making your life with your dog the best it could be. Now, here he is, Michael J. Solar with Dog Talk on BLK9 TV. Hey guys, it's Michael J. Solar here with another episode of Dog Talk. Sorry about that. And I like to start off every episode with a little bit of gratitude. So thank you guys for tuning in, liking, loving, sharing, and subscribing to our YouTube page at BLK9 TV. Tonight, I have a special guest. Her name is Cathy Brooks. She is the owner of Hydrant Club out in Las Vegas. So she is the owner of a dog training company called the Hydrant Club, which is a natural draw to me as a former firefighter in the emergency services, and of course, as a dog lover, who doesn't automatically think of a fire hydrant and a dog? I mean, literally, it's the thing. Now, all kidding aside, Cathy and I have not met before. We just met today. About an hour and a half ago, we had a quick communication to figure out the whole link thing on the show. We hit it off. It's a weird thing. We got together again 20 minutes ago to get her live on the show. I can't wait for everybody to meet her. I am personally just overexcited. I had to even warn her that I feel that our conversation is going to go way past the hour mark tonight. So I think what we'll do is we'll just keep going. We'll cut at the hour mark, and anything that me and Cathy talk about afterwards, I will gladly share with everybody later. We'll put it as another episode next week. I will also leave the chat box open. So if you guys have any questions for us, please feel free to throw it into the comments section below. We can both read it. We can answer your questions. It's just going to be a great conversation. So the first thing we want to do is start off with Cathy coming out, telling us a little about herself and telling about her place. And then we're going to get really into dog science because that's what we were literally just talking about. So I hope you guys are pumped up. I hope you're ready to rock and roll because I know I am. So without any further ado, let me bring in Cathy Brooks of the Hydrant Club. Hi, Cathy. How are you?
Hey, Michael. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me today. This is going to be amazing.
Awesome.
I mean, it already is amazing. It's amazing already.
We've had a great time. So I want you to start out. Tell us, Cathy, tell us the little story on how you created the Hydrant Club. Let's get right into the nitty gritty here. How did it all put together for you?
So how did a career communications professional with a degree in journalism from Northwestern end up training dogs in Las Vegas? It's an excellent question. So yeah, I've been in communications my whole life. I worked in media for a lot of years. Like I mentioned, went to journalism school at Northwestern, graduated, went to California, was living the dream. I ended up working in Silicon Valley for a bunch of years doing communications, marketing, PR, event production, that sort of thing. Never really liked it. Loved the people. It was exciting. It was around the time the consumer internet was happening. And, so all of that was super fascinating, but it was always just kind of it was a job. It wasn't a career. There wasn't really any passion in it for me. So, yeah. Dogs always been a thing for me. I was, as many of us who end up, in this line of work, have the gift, just that my connection with dogs. My mother tells me of stories when I was super little. Anyway, so I had been kind of I'll call myself a hack lay trainer on weekends, while I was working in Silicon Valley, just to kind of make time pass. And then 2000 rolled around. And you may recall that the San Francisco dog mauling case, sometimes called the Diane Whipple dog mauling case in San Francisco, where a woman living in Pacific Heights, very she neighborhood in the middle of San Francisco, was brutally, quite literally ripped to pieces by her neighbor's dogs. A mating pair of Presa Canario Mastiffs, beautiful dogs. One euthanized that night, the next euthanized not long thereafter. I had run-ins with both of the owners in the months prior to that incident, and I ended up testifying as a material witness for the prosecution in the trial. Not an expert witness. I wasn't a licensed dog training professional at the time. I was just an educated dog owner, and I knew from the beginning there was something not right with the dogs. My gut told me, of course, knowing in hindsight, what I know now after all the years, I realize how close I came in one of those incidents to probably having my throat ripped out first. The dogs were dangerous. It was like having a loaded gun that you didn't really care about. Then the kid blows their head off, and you can't say, "Oh, officer, I didn't know that loaded gun sitting on my coffee table that the kid was playing with. I didn't know that could kill the child." And that really catalyzed for me the critical importance that we have as humans, as the stewards of these creatures' lives that we have selectively bred over tens of thousands of years,
Yeah.
that made the choice to domesticate, that made the choice to live in symbiosis with us, as much as it was our choice, it was their choice as well, that it is our responsibility. And so that really catalyzed for me. If I had been a hobbyist before, I became a fanatic. I read every book I could get my hand on. I took every online course that I could. Meanwhile, still working my day job in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Fast forward now to 2012. By now, I'm sick and tired of tech. And I bumped into Tony Hsieh, recently deceased, the former CEO of Zappos.
Yeah.
Bumped into him at a conference, and I said, Tony, I'm done. I'm just done with tech. I got to get out. And he said, well, why don't you come to Vegas this summer and visit? I snorted, told him it was the dumbest effing idea I had ever heard. Effing is not the word that I used. I'll use some decorum here in case there are any kids watching. And he said, no. He said, come, and here's what we're doing, revitalizing this downtown. And by the way, your dog is invited. My dog Truman, who traveled everywhere with me, 70-pound Jim Henson looking shaggy creature. And so where Truman is invited, I would go. So I came here on vacation in the summer of 2012 and was here. I'd been here about 48 hours. And in that 48 hours, a couple of things were abundantly clear. A, lots of dogs living in a very tight area in a high rise in the downtown footprint. Great. And B, not a single damn one of them had any social skills, and none of the owners knew how to handle them in an urban setting.
Wow.
And I thought, this is going to be a disaster. You're going to bring people down here. They're going to bring dogs. The dogs aren't going to know what to do, and somebody's going to get bit. And by the way, I just testified in a trial, a bunch of years ago, where I saw what happens when that is taken to its extreme. And so I was here for about 10 days, and each day talking about dogs, and you should do this and you should do that, and it would be great if you did this, and you need to create a space and educate the people and teach them urban handling and teach the dogs social structure and give them daycare and dig them overnight boarding and all of the things. And they said, that's a great idea. Would you move here to run a business like that? And it was like a hand came down from the heaven and smacked the back of my head, and I turned into a bobblehead, and I said, sure, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. Awesome.
So 6 months later, I was on the ground, and that was 8.5 years ago.
Awesome. So now so a couple of things that you didn't get to speak on is, so when we talked earlier, you were telling me a little about what the Hydrant Club is, and I started giggling because it was very similar to the way we set up Blue Line Canine here in Maryland and Raleigh. And I was like really blown away about it, because you offer, it's a training facility that also then offers boarding and a style of doggy daycare, not just a doggy daycare. So I thought that was absolutely amazing, because obviously that's something we're doing here in Maryland. But you also said you have day trains, but there was something else I forgot that you said earlier about the Hydrant Club. You're a club. All right, now, so this is unique, ladies.
It's Vegas, baby. Of course, we got a club.
So this is really unique because, again, so when I was like, all right, she's doing what I'm doing. All right, so we offer training. Oh, and we got boarding. But the idea is that your dog is in boarding to train. So even if they're there for just boarding purposes, they're going to be worked. They're going to be educated. They're going to be mentally and physically stimulated. So it's going not to be where they're just left to be wondering what
they're
mom
not
and
stuck
dad
in a box, not stuck in a box, waiting, taken out to go potty and then having their parents come home.
Exactly. But you then said that you're like, well, Mike, I also offer a club. And I'm like, wait a second. I don't have a club. So now I have to try to figure this. So
you don't have one yet. I'll bet you by the time you and I are done with each other, you will.
So please tell me a little bit about what is actually the Hydrant Club then. So what is this unique club that you're offering in the evening time?
So you hit the nail right on the head. We're an educational facility, and we deal with both ends of the leash. We do structured day school. Some people call it enrichment, but when the dogs are here, they're here for a customized curriculum. Once a dog comes for its interview, we assess, where is the dog now? Where does the dog need to be? What are the owner's needs? And then we put together a customized curriculum for that dog, which is implemented sometimes with private one-on-one, sometimes with day school sessions, sometimes with board and train, usually a combination of all of the above. So those are kind of the basics. Somebody's getting ready to go home.
Oh, I was going to say, is that a club member coming in?
Yeah, that's probably the, it's just about pickup time. So the owners are starting to roll up to get the dog, to pick up the dogs for the day. So the social club aspect of it, because that's the other thing, is that dogs and humans are alike and or similar in many ways, you know, in terms of humans often learn through play, as
Yeah.
dogs learn through play. They learn through engagement, and they learn through experience. And so to we created a space that is, certainly the services are for the dogs, but it's a space where the humans can come and utilize the space, either just to be in the space with their dog. So private membership access, off-leash play space, indoor and outdoor. So we have the largest outdoor green space. We're the only dog facility in the entire Las Vegas area that has an outdoor space, and it's all real grass. So I took a parking lot, I ripped up the asphalt, I put in all the proper drainage. Yeah, I reversed the Joni Mitchell song, took the parking lot, made paradise, brought in enormous shade trees, put in some water features. And so it's usually about 10 to 15 degrees cooler in our outdoor space than on the sidewalk, just because Mother Nature's doing her deal. We then have about a 2,000 square foot indoor play space for when it's, you know, hot AF outside and you can't be outside.
So
owners have access.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I have to ask the question. So obviously we're based in Maryland. Yep. We're used to mud and grass and all these things. So you have to do me a favor here and paint a little bit more of a picture of why saying that there's real grass in your in your former parking lot is so important, because you're in Vegas. So not many people are from that area or have been there. So what is the main reason why that's a big emphasis for your clientele, and why you're offering it? Why is that so important to them? Besides, obviously, we like grass for our dogs.
So there's a couple of reasons. So when I was looking into building the outdoor space, I looked into ground coverings of various kinds. There is not a single man-made covering that exists that doesn't absorb and amplify heat from sun. Not a single darn one. I don't care how your cool decking works. I don't care how your planking, the fancy different composite planking and ground, rocks, pea gravel, all of these things. So first of all, things like pea gravel or wood chips, people might say, well, wood chips wouldn't get hot. Yeah, but wood chips are going to absorb all the urine and poop, and that's going to smell to high heaven. So you needed something that was going to be able to be kept clean from a sanitary as well as an olfactory perspective, something that was going to remain cool so that the dogs could actually be out on it. And from a hygiene perspective, turf is exceedingly difficult to actually keep truly, truly immaculately clean. And a proper install of turf, like a really proper install of turf, especially for 9,500 square feet, would have cost $75,000 to do it properly, in terms of the trenching and the irrigation and the support system and the suspension for the turf and, irrigation and the cleaning products and having to rinse it. And then still that turf would have gotten too hot when the sun got on it anyway. Yeah. So I can walk barefoot out in that grass and lay on it in the dead of summer in broad daylight. Wow. Because it's grass. Yeah. So it's not going to scald me. So from we get temperatures here. We don't get quite as hot as some places like Death Valley. But, our temperatures we can get up to 115, 118, 120. Now that's usually only for a handful of days or so at a time. Usually it'll top out in, 110 to 112, but we'll go several months where it won't drop below triple digits. And what happens then is that at night, all of those other man-made services never actually get cool, because when you have 110 during the day and it's going to 95 at night, it never gets cool enough for anything to actually cool down. So by the middle of summer, there isn't a sidewalk or a piece of surface that your dogs can walk on that's not going to burn their feet, even at 10:30 at night in the pitch dark. Wow. So from a safety and health perspective, science has shown us that physical adjacency and exposure to trees and to grass, that it makes people happier, that it gives them a better connection to nature. It is the place that dogs are intended to be. Yeah. So I have a hybrid. I have a Bermuda grass, ryegrass hybrid, so that in the summer it's Bermuda and in the winter it's rye, which means it's green all year round. It's super low. It's nothing is really drought tolerant. No grass is drought tolerant. So it does take a significant amount of water, but we've got a great irrigation system, and we kind of spot water. Would you like to see it?
Yeah, please give us a little tour.
Let's give you a little tour. Show you my former parking lot. So this is my little paradise. And
Now,
that's
anybody that's
all
listening
here,
and
I'll
not
walk
able to see, she's walked outside. It's a beautiful yard. It looks like water fixtures. Some beautiful layout. Absolutely beautiful looking layout there. What is that there behind you?
Look at those trees. Those are trees.
No. Yeah, I know the tree.
That's a tree, Michael.
Yeah.
I think you have those.
Yeah, they got a couple of them up here. The rocks there right over your shoulder. What is that?
Oh, so that is a planter for the tree.
Oh, okay.
So what we did, so that's a little raised planter, and then the big tree over behind me there in the distance, this one over here, also has a raised planter, because what that did is, because that stone is in shade all day, it gives people a place to sit in the shade.
Oh, very nice.
Under the tree. It's also really difficult to grow grass immediately under trees because grass needs daylight. So where there is shade, it is typically harder to grow grass. So it's how we do the seeding. I mean, I've learned more about horticulture in the last 8 years and how to actually grow grass in the desert, because it takes special fertilization. The soil here compacts really hard. So we have to aerate like every 5 weeks, which is a lot for a lawn. Usually you aerate your lawn twice a year, 3 times a year. So we aerate, we fertilize with a special fertilizer that is balanced to counter the nitrogen. So dog waste is extremely high in nitrogen, which is why it can't be used as fertilizer, because that's why you get brown spots, because it burns it. So we counter the pea spot. I mean, you'll look like there aren't pea spots.
No. And there's a giant fire hydrant there. I'm assuming that belongs to you.
Yeah, that is my fire hydrant. It's 15 feet tall. I'll walk you closer so you can get a actual size on it. It does function.
Now, we do have a question for you. It says, do you feel that you were able to fully keep the grass environment free of bacteria and viruses?
So yes. So the answer is yes. And part of that comes from the screening process before we allow the dogs to enter the facility in the first place. So we require exponentially more health screening than any other facility in our immediate area. So in addition to basic ova and parasite screening, so the roundworm, whipworm, hookworm, creepy crawly stuff, we also require the Giardia antigen, the ELISA test. We require obviously negative for both of those. And we require fecal screenings for our dogs every 3 months. So if your dog is a member of the club, it's getting a fecal screening every 3 months. If you travel with your dog, it needs a fecal screening before it returns, because your dog might have picked up something, when it went somewhere. So that certainly has helped. And here's the thing about the vast majority of those parasites. Mother Nature takes care of herself if you don't get in the way too badly. I mean, obviously we believe in properly vaccinating dogs and all of that, but Mother Nature has a remarkable way of taking care of herself. So if you're rinsing, if you have the right irrigation, right? So we've got rocks around the edges. So the rocks are disinfected with a vinegar, hydrogen peroxide combination every day. So they're all down. Any hardscape where there might be, poop and that sort of stuff, that all gets cleaned with that substance. It also keeps the pea smell gone. And then the grass, as long as it's getting rinsed down and cleaned out properly, we have yet to have a problem. Knock wood. Hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah, it looks like you have an amazing facility. I did cut you off a little bit. So did you say that your 15-foot fire hydrant works?
I sure did.
Okay,
I got to go to the International House of Hose and buy my own fire hose. I mean, who gets to do that? Who gets to do that?
I don't know. I mean, I thought I was funny when I bought a fire truck a few years ago, but I guess you taught me when you have a 15-foot fire hydrant.
Yeah, so so there's actually a lever on it. So if you pull the lever, water shoots out of the top, and there's actually a connection on the side. So whenever there's like a fun run or something downtown in the summer, we attach the fire hose and we spray down the runners as they go by.
Yeah, you're gonna need to send me how to get me one of those, because I just need one.
I will. I think that you will. I will send you the contact information for Extreme Metalworks. I'll give you my guy's name. And you too can have a 15-foot tall fire hydrant. That's to scale. That is
Yeah,
to scale. It's exactly like a real fire hydrant.
I don't know what I need it for, but I
Oh.
need at least one.
And there's all the kids.
Because, so I was, no kidding aside, here's my, this is my fire chief helmet for our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, nice.
My company had it. So I guess that's just going to go with it. So.
Very nice. You know what? You drive your fire truck on out, and we'll do some photos in front of the hydrant.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely. It'll take me like 8 weeks to get there at 60, it's up to 50 miles per hour since it's a classic, you know. So it's one of those amazing things. I love what you're doing there. It sounds like you have a really good setup with the way Vegas actually is. It looks like you. I'm a little tongue tied. It seems like you molded your business right into the landscape of the need of Vegas and what it needed at that point in time. It sounded like the dogs needed a place to escape, to getting them out there. Not only did you provide an awesome way to keep the dogs clean, safe, and everything like that with the grass, but then we talk about the education. And we started earlier talking about how you don't just let the dogs play. You don't just do it's a custom lesson plans. You're educating the dogs and the owners. So with the club, I'm the little more details. You're bringing them in the evening time or special times for the club, where I'm assuming you're educating the parents on how things work, or are they just using the facility? Where does that all collate together in the club aspect of what you're doing during the day with their dogs?
All of the above. So owners may use the facility. So let's say someone is a work from home person, or let's say someone has an evening shift and they have their days free. Let's say it's a day when their dog isn't in school and it's, just their weekend or what have you. They can come to the facility with their dog as they would any other dog park. Thing is, all the dogs that are here have been screened the same way. So a lot of the things that you might see in a more traditional public dog park in some places, this wasn't the case in San Francisco, which is a super dog friendly city, but I've been a lot of different places where the public dog park is mayhem and chaos are two polite words to describe how that goes. And so what you don't see in our park space that you might see in a kind of a standard public space, especially here in Vegas. So when I first came to Vegas and I was with Truman and I, looked up dog parks online and I went around the valley to try to find a park, and that one was all dirt and that one was all gravel and that one stank like pee and that one had a bunch of unaltered dogs that all looked like they were going to tear each other apart with owners who were in the corner smoking cigarettes, and that one was dirty. And it's funny, I see, Holly just actually asked a question about screening for behavior, and it's a great question, because that's exactly what we do. So every dog goes through a comprehensive cognitive, behavioral, social, and obedience-based evaluation in order to gain entry to our programming. Because the other thing is, not all dogs are a fit for programming like this. Some dogs need private, and those dogs might be private in-home clients, for example, that have a dog walker, but they don't come here. But they get screened. And so when you come here, when you come here with your dog, Michael, and you swipe your key fob and you pull the gate open and you come into like the little anti-space, so double gated entry on both sides, and you take your dog's leash off and all the dogs come running over to the door to say hi, you're not going to have a melee right there at the door when your dog comes in, because the other owners are going to not be sitting over there talking on their phone. They're going to come over to be responsible for their dogs, and the staff will be minding the dogs that are here for school. And there'll be a smooth entry where the door opens and the dog walks in and everybody comes over and everybody sniffs each other and then everybody goes on their merry way. It's like nothing that most people have ever seen before. I said, well, that's not possible. I said, well, yeah, it is possible, because I've been doing it. I've been doing it for 8 years. And when you teach the dogs what the expectations are, and you give the dogs very clear boundaries and rules and structure, and you have a very strong bond between the owner and the dog, or the humans and the dogs, so the handlers all have that strong bond as well. And you teach the humans what those rules are and how to enforce them appropriately, what you have is a really peaceful time. And we've been sitting here now talking for a half hour. You heard one little bark, 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 with 30 dogs in there.
Yeah.
They barked when the doorbell rang. because dogs bark when the doorbell rings.
Right.
But it wasn't sustained, extensive, crazy, frenetic barking. It was basically, hey, you want to get that? There's somebody at the door. Oh, cool. You got this? Cool. We'll shut up.
Yeah, I love it. It sounds like you have a great program down there. You have a great lineup of what you're doing. You're also a behaviorist. Is that right? With APDT or canine counselor with APDT. Is that right?
Yeah. So the Association of Professional Dog Trainers, one of the things that when I decided this was going to be my profession, though innately, I'll say gifted, it always feels weird to say that out loud myself because it feels kind of weird, but it is what it is. Having innate personal skills with dogs and knowing how to handle my own dogs and how to teach dogs was a whole different ball game than teaching people how to remove the friction between them and their dogs and me get out of the way. Right. And that's one of the areas where I believe that our industry overall can be so much better and has so much room for improvement, is that those of us who are in this business, all of us are pretty good with dogs. The majority of us are really good with dogs. And it is our responsibility as dog education professionals to educate the humans to whom the dogs belong. Like, unless somebody's like, oh, my dog behaves with you. I say, yeah, unless I'm moving in and I roll in with 4 dogs of my own, I'm not a morning person. Sometimes I'm messy. You don't want me living in your house.
Right.
Right. So my job is to empower you so that your relationship with so ultimately you don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you can have me if you have questions or you want to up level or you want to do new stuff or something new arises. But you shouldn't need me for long. My job is to empower you so that you can go off and do that on your own. And so by having a club, to get back to your question, which I don't think was fully answered, so I will, by having a space where people can come to hang out with their dogs socially with other people, and we do movie nights and in the before times, and we're starting to do these things again now that the doors are opening back up, we would, project playoff games on the wall and people would come and we would do barbecues and I'd, hire a band to play outside and we'd throw up some tents and we'd bring in a bar. We do birthday parties for people and their dogs. And sometimes I just get a wild hair and, buy a bunch of really long, I'm from Philly, so I'll say it, hoagies, and just say,
that's
hey.
why you knew my accent then. Okay.
Right. I'm like, yeah. So I hear the O, which is it's like Jersey. I'm like, but just like, hey guys, just come on down. We bring in people to talk about different stuff. So I bring in yoga instructors to do yoga classes and you can hang out with the dogs and do yoga and nutritional classes and holistic veterinary stuff and new treatment protocols and CBD. Yes, no, what's the story? And just try to educate people to help them. Information is power.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And for me, and I get the sense this is for you as well, Michael, for me, I am not the arbiter of all knowledge, but I know a lot of people who know stuff. And my job is to help people by knowing where my boundaries are and bringing in the resources if I don't have the info.
Exactly. And it's a shame. You'll probably agree with the statement that in our industry, it's a lot of times we come across a lot of friction when it comes into the business aspect, where a lot of trainers are not going to get along. They're not going to share information because they look at each other as competitors if they're within a certain radius of mileage, right? Yeah. And it's a shame because then we get into what I like to call the YouTube effect. And I always tell people, I'm like, listen, nobody on YouTube is going to literally give you all of the information. They're giving you teasers enough to make you think you got something, so you're drawn in to give them get by the rest, right?
Right.
And it's a shame because when you really think about it educationally, for us dog trainers and getting out there, there's a lot of friction that goes out there. But let's face the facts. We're in it because of the passion. We're in it because we want to see the bigger and better relationships between humans and the animals. We want to give a better life to our family best friends there. And the thing is that dogs have made a huge impact in everyone's life that they've ever touched. Like anybody, one of us is those things. And we always have to get to that point of, circling back. So I love when I get to meet somebody like yourself, have you on the show and listening to what you're doing as a community, because a lot of people don't even realize I'm building a business. No, you're not. You're building a culture. That is the key. You went to Vegas, you saw the dog's needs, not, I know some people like you saw a business opportunity, but when I heard you telling me the story, I heard you say all these things that you saw the dogs needed and said, I'm going to go there to provide this for the dogs. Then on top of that, I'm going to educate all these dog owners for this so that way more people can achieve this dream, the relationship, and prevent future problems and ruin things that are not good, right? So when things go bad, a lot of people like to push the blame elsewhere instead of taking it in. And at the end of the day, it's like we have to self-reflect. When shit happens and it's not working out the way we want it, we have to, hey, what did I do wrong, right? Like, and that's what's great about, I think, being a dog person. I'm sure you might agree. I'm sure anybody listening might agree is when you're having one of them just shit days, you can go to him or her and you can literally just talk. And then they give you that one little lick or the little head tilt or something like that. And you're just like, yep, you're right. You know, there's no word, there's no words or any of these things. And it's an amazing thing because when it comes into working, with the humans, it's one of probably the most difficult tasks. And it sounds like you're putting in a lot of things with the bringing in the holistic trainers, the veterinarians, the CBD, the yeses or nos, the education, the club. You have a question here about maximum amount of dogs in the club setting. Sorry for losing my train.
Yeah. Maximum dogs the setting at one time.
And do you have
so this is not our facility because it's a structured curriculum. We do curate every school day. So we'll look at the balance of dogs because the balance of dogs will really be a determining factor for two things. What's going to be the healthy balance for the day? Because some dogs will upend the entire energy of the day. And because of our dog handler ratio being as tight as it is, so the state of Nevada is not one of the 25 states that has mandatory dog handler ratio. So I enforce my own. I looked at best practices across the country, and kind of conventional wisdom is somewhere between 10 to 15 dogs per handler. The algorithm for me is based on a couple of things. First of all, the makeup of the dogs. Second of all, the seniority and skill of the handlers. So
do you consider the owners to be a part of the handler situation?
Not for the class, not for the school day, school day. So for example, today we had, 30 dogs in class today, plus my 4. So 34 here today. And I had 3, I'll say 3 1/4 handlers on today because one guy, it's like his 5th day, right? So he wasn't really he was more observing and learning and helping with some kind of tactical stuff. But that's more, there are facilities that I know of where that would have been one person, maybe 2. I know some facilities that will ramp up to somewhere between 60 and 80 dogs per handler. Now those dogs are, the way most of them get around the numbers is that they have smaller kind of penned areas where there's 10 dogs here, there's 15 dogs here, there's 20 dogs there, there's 10 dogs there, and you've got one person monitoring all 4 of those areas. Now that's, to me, a recipe for disaster, not to mention those dogs. And the dogs aren't necessarily, let's assume that nothing bad ever happens. It's not really enrichment for the dogs because there's not enough engagement and stimulation for the dogs. So I describe our programming 3 days a week. We do what I describe as Montessori style, which is a larger group. It can be up to 40 dogs. It's a much looser format. We'll do some leash work. We'll do some basic obedience. We'll do door manners. We'll do, kind of testing on fence reactivity and boundary reactivity and resource possession. Real kind of basic and light. Lots of playtime, lots of group play and learning. Monday and Friday are what I refer to as our more structured and focused days. Maximum class size on those days is 20 dogs.
Okay.
And the reason for that is some dogs walk into a room with 30 dogs. Some dogs open their eyes in the morning overstimulated. The Belgian Malinois is an excellent breed example of a dog that just wakes up overstimulated.
I was literally just like, I have one of those.
Right? So they can't help it. You know, the shepherds.
I don't think they sleep. They just stay awake for 14 years.
All the time. All the time. All the time. Like maybe with one eye open sometimes. And so some dogs get overstimulated in the larger group, so they need a smaller group in order to function well. Some dogs are, especially some of the ones that first come to us, we're seeing a lot of this year of dogs that they're pandemic puppies. They haven't had any social exposure. And so they're a little more fearful or uncomfortable in the larger group. So the smaller group is a good way to very slowly enter them in. Those days are super, super structured, where each dog in the class will get, 20-minute hands-on, one-on-one with very focused, intensive curriculum. We'll do some of our Keeler method polish work is done on those days. Some of our other kind of advanced in obedience work is done on those days. Recall work, that sort of thing. And that's the Monday and Friday. We don't do day school on Saturday and Sunday. But obviously when dogs stay with us, if there's a dog here, there's somebody around doing something with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really neat thing that you're doing there. Now, the other question would be, the club you said earlier, people have key fobs to bring their dogs in. I'm assuming that's an evening and weekend, like almost where you're doing like a dog park. Is you still
6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week.
They're allowed to go into the field.
Even if class is in session, even if it's a Tuesday and we have day school in session, if let's say somebody's days off are Monday and Tuesday, and so their Monday, Tuesday is their Saturday, Sunday. When's the day they want to go to the park with their dog? It's obviously Monday or Tuesday. Right. So they can come. Again, all the dogs have been screened. So there isn't a dog off leash in this space that hasn't been deemed safe for that transition. Okay. And if the owner is in the space with their dog, because this is the other testing we do, because sometimes the dogs will behave very well with me and not quite as well with their own humans.
Right.
So if the human is interested in having access to the space, we do an in-depth observation of how the dog is with their human. And sometimes the answer is no, not until we give you some more skills.
Okay.
So if that's what you want, then here's what that's going to take.
I love it.
So I say no a lot. I say no a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have a great handler course is what you got going on there, is teaching them the rules, teaching them the boundaries, teaching them how to respect the other dogs. We literally had an episode a couple of weeks ago. I had Lynn Sable on, and she was a co-host of mine for the episode. And we talked about, I don't know if you remember the trend with the yellow ribbon on the leash, where you're supposed to like, hey, my dog is aggressive, right? And I liked it, the idea of it, because it creates a conversation. I don't like the identification, but it starts the conversation, right? I don't remember what year it was. I want to say it was like 8 years ago when they tried to trend that. I think it was 8, maybe
something
more.
Like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was right around the time when I was getting started here, so it would have been 8, 9 years ago.
Okay, so I remember the trend starting, and I was like, man, it's a really neat trend, because it starts a conversation that nobody ever wants to have. Like, one of the things that always bugs me is it's okay, my dog's friendly. Like I like it bugs me. It really does. Like, listen, my dog's not, or maybe better yet, I'm not. Like, right. So,
my dog's friendly, but I bite pretty badly.
Yeah, but I bite, right? So it's one of those things where I'm like, I really like the yellow ribbon because it creates the conversation. I didn't like the fact that it wound up trending as more of an identification of aggressive dogs. I don't like dogs dogs are dogs. They're I'm going to make a statement that you may or may not agree with me, but there's something that I say to my clients all the time. If I don't agree, that's the only thing we have a disagreement, right?
There's no such thing as an inherently aggressive dog. It's a dog behaving in a certain way because it's uncomfortable, right? Aggression is a manifest. I mean, unless the dog has wiring loose. So I have met in my life one or two dogs that had like a medical thing going on.
Correct. There's an exception of medical. So you can have a tumor, tremors. Yeah. Right. So like, for example, if you have idiopathic tremors, if you're suffering from seizures, if you're suffering from any of those things, right? That would make sense, complete sense on those things, right?
Correct. So, but those are unicorns. They're not normal.
That goes in my category. So when somebody's saying, hey, my dogs are acting aggressive, like, I don't know how you do this, but when I was in behavioral school, we discussed a lot of this kind of stuff. And one of the things that we discussed is if the dog has a tumor, right, and it's causing an impact on the brain, it's not a behavioral issue. It's not causing behavioral problems.
Correct.
It's a tumor.
It's a medical
issue, which means you're not going to solve this with a training class or a sit down, come stay. There's no level of obedience programs or training that's going to, you have to do this. If the dog has idiopathic tremors, you're going to have to do these things. Right. So I don't know how somebody could disagree with that comment, but if they do, I guess you have to disagree with them. But the comment is essentially all behavior is learned behavior. Every behavior we learn, we all come into the world essentially not knowing anything, right? It's just one of those points.
Well, I don't know. I think you and I probably got here pretty smart though.
Yeah. So another one Donna Bell brings in is bad breeding. Yes, bad breeding would go into a category of medical because you're looking at where I would find that to going to medical because of the fact you're looking at genetic issues that are coming up as a problem. So you're not being born with the attributes. So again, it's going to fall into a category of, I'll give you another, actually, let's go with this one. Now, hold on. We're going to time out the aggression.
Okay.
Because bad breeding got brought up.
Yeah. And I've got a great story also. So you first.
Okay. So this is something that comes up that boggles my mind is how people say the phrase, my dog developed hip dysplasia. That phrase literally aggravates me more ways than you could possibly imagine because you're born with it.
Right.
You are born with hip dysplasia. There is nothing there. So bad breeding, it can lead to this because that's what you have. You have bad breeding. It's going to give you this. Typically, now I am not a deer hunter. So let me put full disclosure. I do not hunt.
Okay.
Do not. I know tons of people that do hunt. Okay.
Okay.
But here's the key, right? So in hunting, they give you for the state of Maryland, I believe it's 5 licenses, right? So 5 licenses. You're allowed to kill 2 buck or something like that, or 4 doe or whatever it is. But I have a friend of mine that also explained to me that you can kill whatever you want in the case of management deer. Now, this is a key thing. They call this management, and what they're referring to. And now, for the record, ladies and gentlemen, so don't get mad at me if I'm wrong here. I do not hunt. This is all secondhand or the game of telephone in this scenario. But when they do this management hunting, it is to get rid of deer that have birth defects so they don't breed. So if it has a messed up antler, messed up legs, if it's something wrong with it, they want the hunters to put that deer down so it does not breed. So it keeps good gene lines going forward. So again, when you have the birth defects, you have problems. So in breeding can bring in mental disorders. It can bring in physical disorders. It can bring this kinds of stuff. Is now when we look at in the domesticated, as we were talking earlier about, we've brought these animals into our home. We are not truly sifting through to get out the bad genes, right? We are accepting of all of them, and you're going to come across more cases. So will there be a scenario where bad breeding can come up? And this we're gonna go with this as a question now, but not as a statement or argument. There's going to be a question, and anybody watching or listening can feel free to throw in a comment. We'll read it, so anybody listening later on the podcast or watching later can see it because obviously they can't see it on the screen. Do you believe that bad breeding, right now that we just talked about the deer, getting rid of those things, and now the fact that we don't put down every animal that has the birth defects, do you believe that can lead to having issues for mental, physical attributes of causing signs of aggression, eye issues, and all this other stuff? In my opinion, I would say yes.
I was going to say, if you're asking me the question, I would say 100% yes.
Yeah, so it's very easy that you can see aggression come out through.
So here's the example that I would bring up. So when you think about, and this is science, this is not me. You look at, if you read The Art of Raising a Puppy by the monks of New Skeet, and you parse out the experience of the bitch while she is pregnant through the first weeks of her whelping the litter, and the importance on her nutrition, her well-being, her stability, her safety, her cleanliness, all of that. Even if you have the perfect mating of the genetically right male and the female is given all of the things that she needs, and she's calm and she's healthy and she births a good litter, you still may have a puppy in that litter that comes out sideways with some sort of congenital defect. It happens because it happens. Now, let's say you don't have good breeding, which, there are breeds, I will leave the names out of it, but there are certain breeds that are so that this happens typically when a breed gets very popular. And so people make more of them and they can charge more for it. And they're making them look real pretty. So the color is right or their coat is right or whatever, but they're putting a bitch and a dog together that have no behavioral or temperamental reason for being together. So a deeply fearful dog with a deeply fearful, uncomfortable dog. And I'm not talking about fear-based behavior that's socialized, right? So I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about some dogs are just uncomfortable in their skin like people. Some dogs are just overconfident, whatever, taking two overconfident dogs. So if you look at the Siberian Fox Experiment, right, the silver fox experiment, which has been going on now since the late 30s, early 40s, and you look at, they were doing it to study domestication. For folks who aren't aware of this experiment, group of researchers started selectively breeding the silver fox, also known as the Siberian fox. And what they found was in less than 20 generations, when they took foxes that were neither aggressive towards humans, overtly aggressive toward humans, nor too fearful of humans, but were kind of curious and interested in humans, and they bred them together, in less than 20 generations, the fox's coat color changed, their muzzle shape changed, their ears flopped over, they started behaving and looking like dogs in less than 20 generations. And what happened was when they bred a fox that was overtly aggressive toward humans to another one that was overtly aggressive toward humans, you know what they got? A vicious fox line. Right? So the Presa Canario Mastiffs in that case in San Francisco, bringing back to that, are also a perfect example of that. These two presses, so I've met a lot of them, I've worked with a lot of them, beautiful, magnificent, super confident dog breed. It's used in protection work. So Doberman, Malinois, German Shepherd, Rottweiler, it's in that same class of working dog. So very confident, very strong, very energy forward, thrives with structure, thrives with rules and order. And what they did was they temperamentally kind of created ones that were unstable and then started breeding them together.
Right.
And so this female and male were specifically aggressive and bred that way. So when you act like God, if you will, you create Frankenstein. You create a monster by putting things together and pieces together that don't really have a purpose. Now, I have a mini Australian Shepherd puppy. She's 10 months old. She was not intended to be my dog. She was originally intended to go to a client. I picked her up at the breeder. She was coming to do a board and train with me. And in about 24 hours, I recognized that something wasn't quite right. Her gait was off. She wasn't quite eating properly. Her weaning had gone sideways. She was the smallest in the litter. I ended up, the potential clients, remained clients, they ended up, the breeder said, I don't know what's wrong with that puppy. I don't know whether it's the male or the female that made the litter, or it's this particular combination, but she sterilized the male and female that made the litter because she didn't want to take the chance of anything going sideways again. That's a good breeder, really good breeder. The breeder also took responsibility and said to the people, look, if you would prefer, I can get you another puppy. They took another puppy. And then she said, do you want to keep her? I was like, oh, sure. There are developmental issues that she has. So her tracking is a little bit off, not usual for an Aussie. They usually track really sharply. Her tracking is a little off. Her gait isn't quite as stable as you would think. Now, she runs. Sometimes she falls down. I don't care. It's adorable. She's otherwise completely healthy. Right. But the breeder isn't making any more puppies with that male and female combination because she doesn't want to run the risk that there's a genetic anomaly in there that's going to raise its head again. So, finding a responsible breeder, got to find a responsible breeder, and they're out there. They're out there. It takes a while to dig. Yeah.
So it's one of the, again, going back into full circle, right? Going back into your company. Yeah. So it's a really big education. It sounds like you're leading a great company there. You're developing a nice culture in the area, and you're in downtown Vegas, right? So downtown Vegas, ladies and gentlemen, if you want more information about The Hydrant Club, go to hydrantclub.com. And if you follow them on Instagram, Facebook, are you on Twitter as well?
We sure are.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Hydrant Club. That's it. It says Hydrant Club. So that's an easy peasy way to do it. You could probably see her 15-foot fire hydrant on her Instagram. I'm assuming. I'm definitely going to be talking it later just because of the fact that I didn't see that.
Right.
It's an intriguing thing. So, we're coming into the end of the show, and it's been awesome talking to you because we learned so much together. We chit chat about so many different things. I really almost wish that we would have started recording our conversation even earlier, because I feel like everyone's really missed out on a great conversation on, the different with dog training in general, just understanding the psychological end of it. And the main differences between us and animals is simply
we are animals.
Yeah. And it's I think it's great, that we can have that conversation. And because it doesn't happen often, you really don't find yourself out there as much talking to everybody, because I forgot how to say the word, but I literally had an episode about it. Which the easiest way, humanization of the animals, right? Like
anthropomorphization.
Thank you. That's the word.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphization.
That episode, I stumbled through that word like 18 times. It was like the worst. Yeah, it's rough. But
don't ask me to say it again. I've said it twice. That's sufficient.
That's it. So it's one of those ones, and it's so neat that I feel like you have built and put the right things in place to get control of that with your clientele, getting them in the club, getting them to see the educational side, giving them the opportunity to practice, having what I like to call the lifeguards in place to keep them all in line, keeping the dogs having their best life ever, which then brings them home to have even a better relationship with their loved ones, which again, I always tell people that if you really need a gateway to the other side, just don't look any further than your dog. I mean, literally just spell it backwards. The answer is right there. It's all right there. If you just look at where those things are, and it seems to me, I can't wait to figure out how to get to Vegas and stop by your place, because
there are these things called airplanes that are flying.
I don't fly.
Yeah, I don't fly.
I don't like flying. No, I only fly to go to one place. Other than that, I take my RV. So going to the West Coast,
I've got RV parking. Come on in.
I will definitely take you up on that. Don't get me wrong. I really would love to figure out a way to pack up my entire team and go cross country for like 2-3 weeks and just visit different places and to shut my company down for 2 weeks and just have everybody go and to see how it would be to venture out, do it like a learning dog talk. Awesome thing. And we can definitely stop at the Hydrant Club. I think it would be a neat little thing, because there's a couple of businesses out in Colorado that we want to go to and check out. They're a company that made our kennels for our facility, Gator Kennels.
Oh, yeah. They're great kennels.
Okay, so you're familiar?
Yeah.
Another one, we have to go to Iowa to see Blue 9 Pet Products. We have to go to all these different places. So I'm really excited. So I think I'm.
It looks like Holly said she's in.
She's in. Yeah, she's coming. She's actually my general manager, which is pretty funny how she's in.
Excellent questions, by the way, Holly.
Yeah, she was interrogating you. She was like, oh, okay.
I like that. Bring it on.
Lock it in. So I loved having you on. I can't wait I definitely have to bring you back. There's no joke there. We definitely have to bring you back on the show. It might have to be a live episode where we come down there and do it. I think what we'll do is I'll have to set up the Dog Talk touring thing, I guess.
Right. Put a big satellite dish on the RV.
Yeah, and just go right around and knock it out. I think it'd be a pretty fun time. So I guess, bringing back, what is some of the biggest things to take away from the Hydrant Club? Let's give you an opportunity here to tell your friends, your family, your guests, or anybody else watching what would be the benefits to come into the Hydrant Club. Tell us what they are.
So as far as the benefits of coming to the Hydrant Club, obviously, if someone's not in Las Vegas, it's not particularly helpful because they can't come to the facility. I'm sure yourself, Michael, and many others in our realm over the last year have found the power of online education, the power of using virtual teaching to be able to work with dogs all over the world, actually. Yeah. The truth is that there are some things that just require physical hands-on. You and I were talking earlier today about certain kinds of training, and there are certain tools that I will not teach except in a one-on-one class setting environment to make sure that I am giving the student exact, because precision is so very important, especially with many of the tools that are used. And there's just something that's lost a bit in the translation. That being said, my Keeler, I worked Tony Anchetta as my teacher, my Keeler method work. I've never met the man in person. He's only worked with me remotely, and I'm now Keeler certified after, having worked with him remotely. And he, shows, but he's teaching a teacher. He's not, I'm not a civilian, dog owner. Right. What I would say is, obviously if someone is in Vegas, people in Vegas, we are always happy to be a resource. I'm always happy to be a resource and answer people's questions and provide people with guidance to information. So I'm easy to find online. Hydrant Club's easy to find online. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out. If I can help, I will. And if I can't, I'll be honest about it. What I would say, though, whether it's the Hydrant Club, whether it's Michael, one of your facilities, or wherever you are, what's really important is making sure that you're asking all the right questions about the facility to which you are entrusting the care of your dog. Things like dog handler ratio, things like screening protocols before dogs are allowed in, things like group activities for the dogs. If the dogs are put in groups, how are those dogs screened? What kind of management of that group is in place? How big are the groups? And what's the training of the individuals who are doing the work? Do they have emergency protocols in place? If the power goes out, if there's a storm, if there's an accident, do they know how to evacuate the dogs from the facility in a safe way? Is there someone there 24 hours a day who can provide care to animals or evacuation if need be in case of emergency? I take the care of the dogs that are in my care very seriously. They are all extensions of my family. If something happens to them, it's as though it had happened to one of my own. And I'm not saying that that not all facilities have that, but some facilities are higher volume. And when you're dealing with 200, 300, 3 or more dogs, some of those things can get slipped by the wayside. So just making sure that you're asking questions and that you actually like the answers that you're getting. And if someone's not willing to answer a question or kind of obfuscates on an answer and doesn't really give you an answer, if there's a part of the facility that they're not letting you see and they don't have a legitimate reason for it, that's always a question mark for me. People who come here with their dogs are welcome to see, and they can see my dumpster where I put the dog poop if they want to, They can see our cleaning supplies and where we store our cleaning supplies if they want to. I don't have anything to hide. There have been times where I've been doing work with a more reactive dog in a sequestered part of the facility. So I say, you can't go back there right now because of X, but if you come back at another time, I can show you that space. But I always have a legitimate reason for it. If a facility is evaluating your dog and they want to take your dog into a room that you can't even be watching through a window, I would ask why. Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
I would ask why. So those are just the things that I would offer.
So right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, or you want to just find out more about the Hydrant Club, go to hydrantclub.com. You can also go to their social media pages at Hydrant Club. So go ahead, check them out, see all the fun things that's going on in Vegas. And if you go out to Vegas, sign up for a day of training with her and get hooked up with the Hydrant Club. It sounds like it's an amazing place. Yeah, just give her a call and get yourself signed up. Cathy says, hang on with me as we sign off here. Thank you so much for being on our show. We really appreciate it. And when we sign off here, I'm going to talk to you a little bit one-on-one to see how we can get you back on the show and possibly have the conversation that we were having way earlier, because I think everybody would be really intrigued about that conversation. And it sort of sucks. And I was thinking about it. I was like, man, this is a really good conversation that we just didn't get to record. So I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but honestly, when
talk about dropping the mic.
Yeah, I know. I ain't even kidding you guys. For me, I feel like I met when it comes to talking as fast, and it's not often I met somebody that could talk as fast as me. So it was definitely it was like a royal rumble of words, and we were agreeing, we were conversating, we were getting so much detail out there. I can't wait to have her back on so we can bring you guys the royal rumble of words together. And I'll tell you what, it makes complete sense, because when she said she was from Philly, I was like, there it is. And I was wondering, I was like, somebody's from Vegas is able to literally throw out the words as quickly as this, and I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, going, what major city is out there?
Oh, you mean besides the city of Las Vegas, which has 2.2 million people? Other than that,
no, that doesn't count to me. And I'll explain why really quick. Is Las Vegas is made up of everybody but Las Vegas. So when you really think about it, isn't it?
I don't know.
When
you went to the Strip, didn't you?
I never went to Vegas.
You've never been to Vegas?
Never been to Vegas at all. Never been to Nevada, none of those things. But what I'm saying is this. The city itself, Las Vegas, essentially, if you look at the history of it, right, being from Jersey, New York area, Vegas is the mafia. So it's New York, New Jersey, and Philly that essentially is Vegas. So is it really a major city that has its own thing? I don't know. Because if you go down, you can go to Raleigh, you can go to Jacksonville, you get, and it's again, they all have their own Cincinnati, right? What is it? I went to Cincinnati one time and they told me that the Cincinnati was so perfect that if the world ended, it would have 7 more days. And I was like, wow.
I don't know about that.
Wow, that's incredible. But hey, you know what?
Well, what's interesting, so they call Nevada the battle-born state because the state of Nevada was rushed from territory to statehood toward the end of the Civil War because Abraham Lincoln needed more votes to pass the Emancipation Proclamation to get that passed. So that's why it's called battle-born. So the state itself has been around since the 1880s. The city of Las Vegas was the early 1900s when it actually became incorporated as a formal city. What was interesting is the early urban planners here, though, were ranchers. So there's a city, but it doesn't look like what you expect a city to look like because nobody created an urban grid. That actually happened reverse engineered later, mostly after the casinos kind of took off in the late 30s and early 40s.
Got it.
There's a lot of history here. And there's a lot of...
hold on 1 second because I got to sign out.
Yeah, we're going to talk more. We got to sign out.
That's it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Dog Talk. And we can't wait for you to tune into next week's episode. So please go ahead over to BLK9 TV, like, love, subscribe, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, and make sure you're tuning in each week to Facebook at BLK9 TV. We'll see you guys. Cathy, thanks for coming on, and we can't wait to have you on again. See you guys.